The Madman!
Coming this Valentine's Day, it's the mini set, Return to Naxxramas. The cards came fast and furious, and so too will be this star rating video in which we cover all the cards coming. Additionally, you're going to want to stay around until the end because I'm also going to give my top 3 right at the end. It seems, in terms of ratios, there's a top 10 in a normal expansion. For a mini set, top 3 sounds about right. And we're going to start with the neutral cards, starting with Mistake, which is a card that I covered in a recent topic. A 1-mana 1/3, which is all minion types. Wow, that could fit into a lot of things. 5 stars. Importantly, it's an undead for the low-cost undead for Unholy Swarm decks. It's a Murloc in case you needed more early drops. It's a dragon, it's a mech, it's a pirate. There are so many decks out there that could do with an early drop tribe to get more early game consistency. It's bound to get in somewhere, I think. Darkfallen Shadow, a 3-mana 3/3 undead with Rush and Mana Thirst, 6 gain Reborn, and undead, 1 star. This reminds me a lot of Restless Mummy, except Restless Mummy was 4 mana and could deal with early game swarms. This card cannot deal with early game swarms. This card's useless, except in Arena. Lost Exarch, 4 mana 5/4 undead, Death Rattle, spend all your mana, summon that many 2/2 zombies with Rush. 1 star. What a slow card. It's a 4 mana 5/4 if you play it on curve and then your opponent kills it and then you get nothing other than a 4 mana 5/4. Are you going to wait until you are super late game and then play this card? A puzzling card indeed. You've got the first of 2 cool legendaries in neutral here. Rivendare War Rider, 6 mana 6/6 undead, Death Rattle, shuffle the other 3 horsemen into your deck. The 3 horsemen are Blamu, Korthaz, and Zeliek. They're all 6 mana 6/6s, one has lifesteal, one's got rush, one's got taunt, and if all the horsemen die, then the enemy hero is destroyed. Note that they do need to all die as horsemen, but they could be silenced, only the last one needs to not get silenced. Way too slow, 1 star. Good meme though. And then you got another cool legendary. Thaddeus Monstrosity, 10 mana 11/11 undead with taunt. Your odd cards cost 1. Swaps polarity each turn, which means the following turn, your even cards cost 1. While there are really amusing convoluted 1-turn kills you can do with this card, practically there are better ways to 1-turn kill your opponent. 1 star. Over to the Death Knight, and we begin with a really strong one, but before we show it, I'm going to mention this mini set is a little bit cool in that there is a lot of mix and matching of older mechanics, and it's like these mechanics keep building on each other. Now it makes the most sense in Death Knight because Death Knight didn't get a location, which is our first card here, Construct Quarter. 3 mana location with 3 durability, destroy a friendly minion to summon a 4/5 undead with Rush. Wow, 5 stars! So this card compares with Dark Transformation, which is actually a little bit worse than Construct Quarter's effect because the minion there did not get destroyed, it got transformed. But here you do get a corpse for your destruction and creating a new 4/5 undead. Well, you got 3 Dark Transformations, which are pretty good cards, and you put them all on a 3 mana card, Construct Quarter. Wow. This slots naturally into Unholy Death Knight, which is a tier 1 deck, I think. Make the deck stronger. 5 stars. By the way, that undead deck has a very high chance of running Mistake, incidentally. However, the same can't be said about this next card, Rhymescale Siren, a 3 mana 2/3 undead Naga. Battlecry, if you've cast 3 spells while holding this, freeze 3 random enemy minions. It has 1 Frost Rune requirement. Frost Death Knight doesn't run the Menethil Freeze Weapon. The Menethil Freeze Weapon is stronger than Rhymescale Siren, so therefore Rhymescale Siren won't be run. 1 star. A Rhymescale Siren is actually criminally bad. I am surprised that it's this bad. And then we got a Death Knight legendary. Frost Queen Syndragosa, 7 mana, 1 Blood Rune, 1 Frost Rune requirement. 7 mana 6/6 Undead Dragon, Colossal +2, so here's the old mechanic coming into Death Knight, which is kind of cool. After an enemy minion is frozen, destroy it. So she spawns with her 2 appendages, Syndragosa's wings. Rush, freeze any character damaged by this minion. So the most natural way to play her would be you play her, you rush your wings into 2 enemy minions, effectively making it a 7 mana 6/6, destroy 2 enemy minions of your choice. That is actually not very good. And that is just about the strongest outcome that you're going to get. Furthermore, Blood Frost is not a combination that is currently being run. And furthermore, there is no reason to run Blood Frost mixtures because the 3 blood decks tend to be very heavy control decks, and you need 3 blood requirements to run the really good control cards. The 3 frost rune cards are essential in order to be able to run Frostworm's Fury. This 1 card is not enough to get blood to splash for frost, essentially. And yes, you get all the other 1 frost rune cards available as well, but that isn't worth not running Vampiric Blood, and the other frost cards don't offer enough. So, sadly, 1 star. In Hunterland, Hunter's got Trinket Tracker, 1 mana 1/1, Undead, Battlecry, draw a 1 cost spell. 1/1s that draw a pretty useful card tend to be pretty good. Unfortunately, I have to give this 2 stars because there's not that many 1 cost spells you want to draw. Yes, tracking comes to mind, but that is about it. Zombies. 2 mana secret after your opponent plays a minion, summon 4 1/1 zombies to attack it. That's actually kind of neat, and you could see some use of it in terms of, hey, that actually infuses 4 because 4 things could die. And it is really efficient. It's better snipe because it deals 4 damage, and if it was only like a 2 health minion, you're going to have 2 1/1 zombies, which are undead and beasts, left. Here and there have always been some small secret packages in Hunter, and I think zombies, if there were a secret package going in any Hunter, would actually be played. It's a solid secret. 2 stars. However, I doubt that it will actually be played because the secret package in Hunter is less powerful than many other packages going around right now. And you've got Faithful Companions, a 7 mana Hunter spell. Discover a beast from your deck and summon it. Mana Thirst 10, also summon a copy of it. So the dream is to fetch your King Crush and then have 2 crushes attacking your opponent. 1 star though, why run Faithful Companions when you can just run a Shard and Saber and the Sunken Saber, which is a much better way of pulling big beasts from your deck. Over to the priest cards, they're really aggressive, starting with Mind Seer, 1 mana shadow spell. Deal 2 damage to a minion. If it dies, deal 3 damage to the enemy hero. Wow. Back in my day, we had Cobra Shot, which was a 5 mana spell that dealt 3 to a minion and 3 to the enemy hero. We've come a long way. This costs 1/5 the price of Cobra Shot. It's a good card, and furthermore, Zombie Shadow Priest is actually a deck right now. It's kind of aggressive, and I think Mind Seer fits well into that. 4 stars, as I think that could be a tier 2 deck. Also fitting into that deck will be Rotting Necromancer, a 4 mana 5/4 undead, Battlecry Dredge. Again, it's an older mechanic being brought into this mini set. Anyways, Battlecry Dredge, if it's an undead, deal 5 damage to the enemy hero. When you are playing an undead priest deck, you're almost always going to succeed in dredging up an undead. 4 stars. These 2 cards make Undead Shadow Priest a little bit more fearsome. They have more burst. It actually makes Undead Priest one of the most aggressive decks in the game, I'd say. Finally, you've got Cannibalize, 4 mana shadow spell. Destroy a minion, restore its health to all friendly characters. Well, the destroy a single minion cards just keep getting better and better. A great card for a control archetype of priest, which has over the years generally been a reasonable deck. This time around, the control priest deck of choice is Quest Priest, and still that deck is sadly not that strong. And Cannibalize is not going to push it to further strengths. It'll be a solid card in that deck, but it's just still not good enough to carry that archetype. 2 stars. Paladin's got some cool stuff. We begin with Knight of the Dead, 3 mana 5/5 Undead, Battlecry, deal 5 damage to your hero. Mana Thirst 7, restore 5 health to your hero instead. This is a really cool design in which the early 3 mana 5/5 deal 5 is a really aggressive play, but you wait until turn 7 and suddenly it's a stabilization tool, which fits like a control deck or a mid-range deck. 5 stars, I think this will mostly be seen in the aggressive deck. There is currently a pure Paladin deck that is very aggressive and would certainly appreciate being able to put out a 3 mana 5/5 with essentially no drawback if you're up against a deck that isn't dealing damage to you because you just kill them faster with the 5/5. This card also gets fetched by the Purator. The legendary for Paladin is really cool in this set. This is probably the coolest legendary in this set, in fact. The coolest card in the set. The Purator is a 5 mana 4/6 and is planned to be a mech. They're going to change it. Currently, no class though. Taunt, Battlecry, if your deck has no neutral cards, draw a minion of each minion type. So this is going to slot naturally into pure Paladin as it is. You probably won't even make that many changes to it. The pure Paladin deck right now is very aggressive and has a high end of Light Ray. Light Ray is an elemental beast which the Purator could draw 2 copies of. It'll draw Seafloor Savior, the mech, and it'll draw Knight of the Dead, an undead. You may change the deck a little bit so that you actually draw even more cards with the Purator. Of course, I would do such a thing because, hey, if you're going to include such a great card and you can change the deck a little bit to add even more power when you play this power card, why not? Which leads me to 5 stars. So those are some strong cards for Paladin. It did get one loser in Goldwing, 4 mana 3/5 Mech Dragon. Rush, Battlecry, if you're holding a mech, gain Wind Fury. It's been chattered about how even if this were a 4 mana 3/5 Rush and Wind Fury with no precondition, it wouldn't even be that good. And I tend to agree with that. It does fit into the dragon archetype of Paladin, which is currently quite bad. And it does also fit into the mech archetype of Paladin, which is currently quite bad. It could also, as a dual class, bridge the gap between the two, and you could run a mech dragon deck, which sounds terrible. This card, sadly, is just a bit too weak. 1 star. Will this mini set be the grand revival of Warrior? Let's start with Training Session. 1 mana, discover a taunt minion. If you play it this turn, repeat this. Okay, so we got a value attrition card in Warrior. That is unfortunately not an archetype that currently works, and Training Session is not going to change that. 1 star. You got Hook Fist 3000, a 3 mana 4/3 mech pirate. After your hero attacks, gain 4 armor and draw a card. The card is good, but the decks that it could go into just aren't good enough. In Control Warrior, there isn't a consistent enough weapon online that fast for your Hook Fist to come down. For Pirate Warrior, sure, you'll probably slide this in, but the deck as a whole just isn't that strong. So sadly, 2 stars. As a nod that it does have a place in a Pirate Warrior. And then you got Flesh Shaper, 6 mana 3/8 undead, taunt, Battlecry. If you have 5 or more armor, summon a copy of this. 1 star. This unfortunately, similar to Goldwing, this card has a condition where even if the condition didn't exist, the card still might not be strong enough. 6 mana for 616 worth of stats. Cool. Control Warrior, there's better options nowadays. Mage has some cool cards, but they're rather bad. We got Spectral Trainee, a 3 mana 1/4 undead. After you cast a spell, deal 1 damage to all enemy minions. It is a board control Flamewaker. It has really bad stats for the cost. It doesn't do that much damage, and this is not going to create a new archetype by itself. 1 star. Whirlweaver, 3 mana 4/3 elemental Naga. Battlecry, if you've cast a spell last turn, discover an elemental. The elementals you can discover are quite bad. Furthermore, this is one of those, if it didn't have the requirement, the card still might not be great. And then you got 4 mana Tear Reality, a Mage Arcane spell. Add 2 random Mage spells from the past to your hand, they cost 2 less. That's a really, really cool card, regardless 1 star though, because that is a very inconsistent spell. It could create any types of wacky spells. Cards in the present day have tended to be stronger than the cards of the past. This is clearly just here for having fun. and the chaotic nature of Mage. And maybe you praise Yogg, and maybe you draw a puzzle box of Yogg, and then you praise Yogg as reality is torn asunder thanks to your mad science. Demon Hunter has Shambling Chow, 1 mana, 2/3 with Rush. Death Rattle, deal 4 damage to your hero, and it's an undead. There is a lack of Demon Hunter decks that are this aggressive that you could just easily slot the Chow into. If there were a Demon Hunter deck that were quite aggressive, that were minion focused, I could see Chow perhaps replacing something. But I'm just going to point out this card is just not as good as it looks, because if you're using this to immediately kill something, like as a removal spell, then it's a really bad removal spell where you spent 1 mana and 4 damage to yourself to deal 2 damage. We got a little bit of something for you outcast Demon Hunter lovers out there. A Calamity's Grasp, 1 mana, 1/2 weapon. Death Rattle, add a random outcast card to your hand. 1 star! Oh man, the list of outcast cards are quite bad, and the outcast deck is quite bad, and this is not going to save it. And for you big Demon Hunter lovers, you got a 6 mana, 5/7 Fellscale Evoker. Battlecry, if you've cast 3 spells while holding this, summon a different demon from your deck. Kind of cool that it says that, because it means if you've included big demons and Fellscale Evoker, the Fellscale Evoker will not get the other Fellscale Evoker, it'll get the big demons. Now, unfortunately, I don't really see big Demon Hunter being a thing, even though, admittedly, Fellscale Evoker is a good card for that deck. 1 star. Now, Shaman has what very well may be the best card in the set, Blazing Transmutation. 1 mana fire spell. Choose a minion, discover one that costs 1 more to transform it into. Wow, well, you probably know that Evolved Shaman is a pretty good deck currently, and Blazing Transmutation will take that deck to new heights, possibly making it the best deck in the format. The reason being, sometimes when you evolved your Null, your 10 mana Null, which you played on turn early, like 3 or 4, you would evolve it into something that was just big and it's like, whatever. But with Blazing Transmutation, you have a much higher chance. And one of the good options to get is Thaddeus Monstrosity, in which case you'll have an 11/11 with Taunt, which mana cheats all your other cards. So if you actually Blazing Transmutation into Thaddeus, you could drop a lot of pressure on your opponent. And that'll be absolutely disgusting. 5 stars. You got Cold Storage, a 1 mana frost spell, freeze a minion, add a copy of it to your hand. It is very comparable to Wind Chill, and then you have the debate. Would you rather draw a card or would you rather add a copy? And you get to target which card you want to copy. It might be a card that doesn't exist in your deck. It's handy, but I just don't see it as being played when Wind Chill is out there. So 1 star. It is probably meant for a little bit of a different use case than Wind Chill, because you often want to add copies of your cards to your hand because your cards have synergy with your deck. You could imagine the situation where you want more Nulls because the Null is such a good card in this deck. You play the Null, you Cold Storage it, and then you immediately evolve it, which basically unfreezes it. But it's a little bit too feast or famine, in which case, like, if you draw all the evolve synergies together while also Cold Storaging, then yeah, that looks pretty good, but all in all, I think too inconsistent. And then you got Frostfin Shamper, 3 mana 2/3 Elemental Murloc. Battlecry, if you played an Elemental last turn, summon 3/1/1 Murlocs. Absolutely bizarre. There's not very many elementals being played in Shaman, and I doubt this will be the card that greatly encourages Shaman to play it. The payoff is rather large. It is a 3 mana 5/6, 3 mana 2/3 plus 3/1/1 Murlocs. Could be a wide board, could buff that wide board, but you'd have to adjust your deck so much by adding in elementals. It strikes me as not worth it. Rogue's got some pretty cool stuff. Starting with a Ransack, a 0 mana, deal 1 damage to a minion. If you've played a card from another class this turn, deal 4 damage instead. 3 stars, because I do think it slots into Thief Rogue. Unfortunately, Thief Rogue got walloped, which is why it gets 3 stars for me. You've got Jolly Roger, 1 mana 1/3 Undead Pirate. After your hero attack, summon a 1/1 undead pirate. Well, that's really efficient, and it will fit into some sort of tempo rogue deck should that come about. It is one of those just solid cards because, 1 mana, 1/3, solid stat line. That is a very big effect that your opponent wants to remove, but it's very hard to because 3 health that early in the game is difficult to remove. Will we see a tempo rogue come about? Perhaps one with undead and concoctions? With the benefits of the Thief package not being as pronounced due to the nerfing of the Wildpaw Null, just a classic tempo rogue could be decent enough with Jolly Roger, and also with the other card, Stitched Creation. 3 mana 1/1 undead, combo, gain +2/+2, infuse 2, gain +3/+3, mana thirst 8, gain +4/+4. A tempo rogue would probably have 2 corpses, or have 2 things die, rather, for the Stitch Creation to get that +3/+3 pretty quickly, in which case you may be able to play this as a 3 mana 6/6 fairly early in the game. Way later, on 8 mana, you could play this as a 10/10. So Stitch Creation, Jolly Roger both get 2 stars from me. They both seem solid and strong. In a tempo rogue deck, I just find it a little bit doubtful that while good cards, they don't strike me as good enough to create this honest tempo rogue list, which isn't trying to scam you, but is just trying to play a nice solid game and beat you with, cards that are good for the cost. Over in Druid, we got Rake. 1 mana, give your hero +2 attack this turn, deal damage equal to your hero's attack to a minion. Fun fact, did you know that this card is basically savagery +++? You get an extra +2 attack on savagery, and you get a minimum of 2 damage done with savagery. So the minimum is 1 mana, deal 4 damage here to 2 different things or to 1 thing, and you'll take some damage because you're attacking with your face. Still, I can only give this a 2-star because I find the necessity for this kind of utility to not be that clear. Perhaps in some sort of control deck if there were a lot of aggro out there. There's Life from Death, a 6 mana nature spell which draws 3 cards. Infuse 6, this costs 1. Wow, 1 mana draw 3, that's quite strong. And in the Tempo Druid world, as opposed to the Ramp Druid world, well, Tempo Druid can certainly use a refill, and they also have many minions die. So Life from Death could fit into both decks, 5 stars. And then you've got quite a hilarious card. I find it hilarious. Death Beetle, 6 mana 6/6 undead beast. Taunt, mana thirst 11, gain +4/+4 in charge. We gotta bring up the flavor text for this card because it is so great. Well, that'll be useless next expansion. Wink wink. I mean, the only way to get above 10 mana is to play Guff, and then you go up to 20 mana, and then you can play your Death Beetle as a 6 mana 10/10 charge. But as the flavor text playfully notes, Guff is rotating out. That would mean this card is completely useless, right? Well, the implication is that one of 2 things will happen. 1, Guff will be put into the core set, and option 2, there's going to be some new card in the new expansion which will allow you to go above 10 mana yet again. Now, people are afraid about this because of the fear of Guff, but relax. Maybe the new card just will give you the ability to gain 1 extra mana crystal. This can push you above 10 mana. In which case, max mana 11 or 12, perhaps? Who cares? No big deal. Relax. Furthermore, I'm giving this card a 1-star because while this card could be run in Ramp Druid and wouldn't be that bad in it, it is a 6 mana 10/10 taunt with charge. The Ramp Druid is not really looking for a card like this. Ramp Druid essentially doesn't care about charging the opponent's face too much, so Death Beetle is unlikely to be that useful. And then we've got some good stuff for Warlock. We'll start with Suspicious Peddler, 2 mana 2/3 undead, Battlecry. Discover a 1-cost card. If your opponent guesses your choice, they get a copy. This card is a nod to Dark Peddler way back when, where it was a 2 mana 2/2, which discovered a 1-cost card. And I'm actually befuddled by how this card is so bad, and that it's quite possible that the old card all the way from League of Explorers was better, because you only get 1 more health and you risk the chance that your opponent will get a card. 1 star. Plague Eruption. 3 mana, deal 2 damage to all minions. If you discarded a card this game, deal 1 more. Pretty easy to call this 1 star. The control discard deck is not here. I wonder if this is a hint that eventually they are going to print some sort of control discard package in the next expansion. Perhaps this is a setup card. But currently, there's like no way that Plague Eruption will be used. But we'll end on a very strong note. No Fins Impossible. 2 mana, give all friendly demons and murlocs death rattle, summon a 2/2 imp lock. Wow, well this goes right into the imp lock deck, which is a strong deck, and this will make it clearly stronger because it's Soul of the Forest, except 2 mana discount. And the fun thing is the fact that it has demons and murlocs. Like, when you think of imp lock, you might think, oh, it's all demons, right? Well, there's actually 1 murlocula in there, which is a murloc, and you can actually use No Fins Impossible to still buff that murloc. 5 stars, this card gives, you know, even more benefits to having a bunch of imps on the board, and then you can keep them on the board, and then, you know, after your opponent wipes your imp board, oh, hey, even more imps. Disgusting. So if you watched the whole video, you probably already knew which cards I thought were really strong, so we're gonna recap them real fast here. At number 3, Construct Quarter is a 3 mana location that is going to create 12/15 worth of rushing stat value. Now obviously you can't count all 12/15 because, you know, you have to sacrifice at least some stats, but some stats you sacrifice could be 1/1s. So if you are sacrificing 1/1s, then it's 3 mana for 9/12 rushing. Wow. Number 2 is No Fins Impossible. One of the big ways that imp lock was weak is that you were required to basically commit a lot of imps on your board because you had to in order to make that deck work. Now, what if those imps were sticky and the AoE didn't remove the imps and left 2/2 imps? Well, that would just be downright terrifying in a deck that's already pretty strong. And the number 1 card in the set, in my opinion, the thing that's going to change this meta, actually will move the needle and bump one of the archetypes up to the front. I mean, like, the other cards are all doing that. Construct Quarter will buff Unholy Death Knight, No Fin is Impossible will buff Imp Lock, but this card is so strong alongside Thaddeus. Blazing Transmutation I would say will move Evolve Shaman into one of the strongest decks. The fact that you had a lot of variance in Evolve Shaman, you know, sometimes you transformed your 10 mana null into, whatever, just an 8/8, oh well. But now the fact that you can choose like some really, really strong effects such as Thaddeus, that is going to make the early game of Evolve Shaman so very, very fearsome. The only thing I can say that will perhaps ease your fears a tiny bit is you cannot get Neptulon. So there you have it. I think it's a really interesting mini set because, well, dual class minions, but also a lot of mechanics of old being brought back, such as Dredge and Colossal. Even though this is a small mini set, this is the most, you know, old mechanics that have ever been thrown into a new set.